Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lunchtime with Demons. And I am Abella Crest, your host, and I'm here with Ryan Stone. How are you, Ryan?
Doing good, Bella. How are you today, Bella?
How are you today, Bella? I'm good. I'm good. I've been a little stressed this week, so I'm one of those people that when I'm stressed, I don't eat. Not great.
Mm,
10 out of 10, don't recommend.
yeah.
Um, but my tummy turns to knots and I just can't. So, um, I was able to eat last night and then I had some breakfast today. And so I'm like, I feel pretty good. Like my body is like, wow, nutrients.
I'm glad you got to eat something finally.
Wow. Oh no. I mean, the reason why I share things like this is just because I think, you're human. We all have
Exactly.
different ways that we respond to stress and mine, and they're not always healthy ways. And so
Yeah.
we do the best we can. And I just don't want anyone to ever feel alone that, they're like, oh, this only happens to me. It probably doesn't. It probably happens to a lot more people than you realize.
Yeah,
Um,
I tend to just dive into it like unmercilessly, like just give it to me. I'm gonna take it all. We're gonna do this and get done with it because I know that there's another side to it at some point. So
mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm.
I just keep loading it up because I always take the stress on my shoulders. So I always joke about like I just start piling it on and
Mm,
trudge through the snow.
no. Stress is horrible. Stress will take you out. Stress will take you out. So, we're gonna have a non-stressful episode.
Yeah.
Woohoo! My throat is a little yucky today, so forgive me if I clear my throat quite a bit. I'm super excited for this episode because it's going to be a part of a series and it's going to be called Working with Lucifer. So I get asked all the time. I think it's probably out of every question I get asked, and I get asked a lot of questions. I would say one of the the questions I get the most is how do you start working with Lucifer? And it's not even just how do you start working with gods, how do you start working with demons, but specifically, how do you start working with Lucifer? And that makes sense because of my role with him and his role in my life. I honestly really like to think of it like that, his role in my life, more so than my role with him, because I believe that he has many practitioners and possibly many priestesses. I just have not met them. I would love to, so if you're a high priestess of Lucifer, you should reach out. Um, but I believe that, he has many, but so I like to think of as a priestess his role in my life because he is who I serve. And so it shifts and adjusts my life because my life is in service to him and to those that he loves and and his will and his wants and desires in the world. And so it makes sense that I have people who come to me randomly and go, "Hey, how do you even start working with Lucifer?" And so I talked to him about this because I was like, I really want to me and Ryan want to do an episode on you the same way that we did an episode on Satan. And he was like, "But you've already done that. You have the YouTube video of you talking about me and like the history your experience through your UPG, my unverified personal gnosis of like my experience with his lore." And he's like, "You have that Lucifer YouTube. Do you really need to do that on the podcast? That seems rather redundant." I was like, "Well, you're not wrong." And he was like, "So what if we have a different approach? What if you can say, hey, on the podcast, you can listen to how to work with him. On YouTube, you can listen to about his history." And I was like, "You are so smart."
I'll
And
include the link for that as well in the
thank you.
episode notes.
Yes. So that's how we arrived to where we are now, which is we're going to talk about how to work with him once you kind of know a little bit about his history. Um, And I'm really excited about this because I'm going to start slow. We're going to talk about really, really slowly how to start working with him. And that's why we're going to do it over the course of a couple episodes as I get more and more and more in depth and potentially even lead you to a place. I would like to lead you, or he would like to lead you to a place of even understanding the steps to service. So,
Nice.
my gosh, sorry. There is something I do want to touch on before I kind of dive into this. Um, One of the things you have to understand about me talking about the divine and Ryan talking about the divine is you're sitting here listening to two people share with you their practice, the way they see things through their lens after years of their own experiences, their own life experiences. So you have to keep in mind that everything that is being said is also, a reflection of the two people that are sitting in front of you. There is no book that is saying like, "Wow, Bella and Ryan are speaking fact." There is no way that you can like intellectualize what we talk about. Like you can try, sure. We are just two people sharing our spiritual practice and experiences with you. There are very few facts in religion, in any religion. For the most part, what we're doing is simply sharing our personal experiences and then trying to help people or at least give people an opportunity to see their spiritual practice through a different lens or a different perspective. And when I speak about Lucifer, I think that there is a lot of projection that happens against me. And yes, I'm outwardly saying this. I know there is. I don't think there is. I know there is. He tells me there is. I know there is. I don't always see it. I'll be really honest with you. I don't always see it. But he tells me there is, and I then see it. And I usually by the time I see it, it's shifted into something sour. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because when I speak about Lucifer, it is truly because he has changed my life, healed my life, healed me, helped me, loved me, taught me what unconditional love is, inspired me to fight, to move on from things that were hurting me, to step away from people that were cruel to me. He's taught me boundaries. He's changed my life. And so when I speak about him or teach about him, it is in service to him out of love. And so if you work with him, if you call yourself a high priestess of his, if you are a high priestess of his, I don't care how you identify with him, a spouse, he's your patron, he's your father, he's your brother, he's your husband, I don't care. In truth, if he is a part of your heart, try to open yours towards other practitioners of his or other people who also serve him and love him. Leave the jealousy and the projection aside and allow that love to reach someone else at least through the lens of saying, I see how his hand has helped your life. I may not agree with your practice. I may not like the way you practice. I may not like the lens that you see him through. I may not believe in the historical perspective you have on him. I may not want to practice with him the same way you do. You may say he loves this and I think he hates this. I don't care. You say he has blonde hair. I say he has brown hair. Whatever it is, whatever it is, try, if you can, to set that aside and just see his grace in someone else's life. and try to hold space for that. I really think that we could really build a beautiful community if we can get better at that. Okay, so moving forward, I'm not trying to convince you to practice with him the way I practice. I am not trying to tell you that this is the only way to start working with Lord Lucifer. That Bella knows the only way to start working with Lord Lucifer because she is the ultimate high priestess. That is not what is happening here. Okay? So please leave your projections aside for a moment and just listen from one heart to another of how this is just one way through one person whose life has been changed by his incredible grace, his incredible light. And I'm just sharing it with you, with anyone that's willing to listen to this podcast, in hope that if it was something that you were interested in, that maybe you take the first step to discovering your way of working with him. Your way, not my way, not let's resemble Bella's practice. Your way. Okay. So, how to start working with Lord Lucifer? I think what's interesting about Lucifer is I find that it's very rare that I meet someone that he hasn't been in their life since the beginning. Very rare. Not always. There are definitely people that he comes in later in their practice, and there's typically another entity that's been there since the beginning. And then like he'll kind of come in later. So whether he's been in your life since the beginning or he came in later to assist in some way, if he comes in, or you have this feeling that he's coming in, or an inkling that he's coming in, or somebody tells you that he's coming in, or you have a dream that he's coming in, or suddenly you start seeing everything in the world starts to reflect Lucifer, and there's a chance he's probably coming in. One of the biggest things that I think people really get hung up on is why me? And and there's a couple things I am going to touch on throughout this series is the whole why me thing, the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, the abandonment issues, the anxious attachment issues towards, like being connected to them. And I'd like to just say something else too. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist, nor do I pretend to be. I am just a person sharing their experience with you about their spiritual practice. And I'm a coach and I'm a high priestess. And so I'm going to just speak from what I know. But I see a lot of things. I have a lot of clients, I have a lot of students, and I see a lot of patterns all the time. I'm very good at patterns and I see them. And when I've got 15 people at once talking about how anxious they are and the entity can't, like the feeling that the entity isn't there makes them anxious, that sounds like anxious attachment. And I will run things by my clients who are therapists. I'll run things by my own therapist, my ex-therapist, and be like, what does this sound like to you? Just so I know, but I don't ever claim to be a therapist, and nor will I ever step in your life to become your therapist. Please seek your own mental health help. This is not about mental health, and I'm not going to touch on mental health. What I am touching on is just deity work and the practice itself, which can overlap. So make sure that you prioritize your mental health. But my job as a coach is to teach you how, HOW, how to do these things, not why you're feeling what you're feeling, not how to process what you're feeling, but how to do the action. So, Lucifer may have been there your whole life. And I think it's funny because there always comes a point when with someone where they go, why am I drawn to this thing? Like, why am I drawn to him, to his name, to things about him, to shows with him, different like animal associations too. They're like, I love swans or I love snakes, or I love goats, or I love whatever it is that, you associate with the idea of the devil. People typically know that there's some connection, and they typically feel really, really, really pulled to it. And damn, if there is one thing he is good at, is making himself known.
In all the most amazing ways.
He's not, it's so funny because like he is subtle and he's also not.
I was gonna say that's the irony is he can be very unsubtle and then very subtle. Subtle. Sorry, settle.
Yeah, he is. It's because he loves a long game.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of the best masters of the long game.
He really is. And like, I find him to be very humorous. I think he has a very dry sense of humor. And I'm going to use I a lot. You're going to hear I think, I feel, I am, I this, because it's my perspective. I am not saying he is this. You may experience a different Lucifer. From everything I say here, from everything Ryan says here, you may experience a different Lucifer. And I will go over at some point why I believe that that is happening, why I believe that that is happening. You're probably going to kill me by the end of this episode because everyone's going to be like, God damn it, Bella, we know. But, honestly, trust me when I tell you there's reasons that I repeat myself. I repeat myself. I repeat these things because it does need to be heard. And there are new people that listen to this podcast and they need to hear. And there are people who just outright don't like me because they think that I'm trying to tell you what to do. I'm not. I'm not. I'm just trying to exist in my life, in my world, with the spiritual practice that I have and share it with the world. That's it. And I don't owe anyone any explanation other than just it brings me joy and I was told to share it. And that is what I'm doing. So here we are. So don't kill me by the end of this by being so specific about how I say certain things. Um, but he is a master for me. He is a master of the long game, and he's got this dry sense of humor. And oh my gosh, he will hold out for a chuckle, like for a joke that just gives him a solid chuckle. Like I've seen him play me for like a year on a joke. And then the joke finally finishes, and I just like I'll see him in my mind's eye, and he just is like, ah, that's it. Like a good solid chuckle. And I'm like, all of that for that? And he's like, yeah, that was good. That was worth it. And I'm like, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I got shit on by a seagull, that all these things happen with a fucking seagull. If you guys don't know the seagull story, I'm sure I'll have to go into that at some point. But all these things so you could get a solid chuckle. And honestly, I say that like kind of sarcastically, but I mean it. I'd let him bend me. I'm gonna cry. Ugh. I'd let him bend me into a fucking pretzel if it meant that he would chuckle because his laugh is everything. Excuse me. Sorry. Oh God. He's just. Oh, Ryan, say something. I'm crying.
Okay. He is. Yeah, I get it. And I have had the fortunate nature of working with him openly, probably longer than I have with Satan, interestingly enough for me. He was kind of the first deity within the infernal pantheon that I openly like acknowledged, and then to really realize that he was put there by Satan for me. So that's kind of the funny caveat for me is that he technically was kind of the first deity within the infernal pantheon that I acknowledged and worked with. And um, he's kind of for me I've always seen him as like this intermediate being that like welcomes and crosses so many boundaries with what he is and what he does.
There's so many incredible like evolutions of him and facets to him, and there's so many like people, some people will call it epithets of him. So there's so many different ways to interact with him. There's so many different, I want to say versions, like literally, like literally, just there's so many Lucifers that you can interact with, engage with. Parts of him, he's so vast as a divine being, and he is such a mirror that you just, I mean, at least from what I have seen in, in my time as a coach and as a practitioner, and especially as a priestess, I've seen the way he loves. It's so honest. It's so, even if he's in your life just for a short amount of time, it's so honest that it is also very painful. I've recently had a moment with him where he was channeling through me actually, and he was talking to a practitioner and he was setting a really strong boundary, and it was ripping me apart inside because I knew what he was doing. He was not going to enable this person. And they, I think, very easily could have seen it as rejection. It wasn't rejection. It was sheer love. And I mean like to the deepest level. I can't even really explain it without crying again. It was just sheer and utter love. And I kept screaming at him while he was channeling through me. Not screaming, but like sometimes it feels like I'm screaming when he's channeling and I'm trying to speak to him at the same time because it's like I'm behind and I try not to do that. Um and I kept saying like she's going to feel rejected. She's going to feel rejected here. And he was like, in the moment. But that is all a part of the lesson. It's all a part of this. Rejection for a moment, but to then come face to face with unconditional love and someone not truly giving up on you. Abandonment is in abandoning the person when they need you to hold the container. And it's like someone being, and I don't know if this is a good let me speak from my own life perspective instead of reaching. I think from my own life perspective, it would be like when I was younger and, doing drugs. I wasn't doing a lot of drugs, but I did a decent amount. And, it's like if I would have went to a friend and was like, "Hey, do you want to like do some ecstasy tonight or whatever?" And that friend was like, I love you, but no, no, and you shouldn't either. And I'm not going to like help you do this. Like, I would have been like, you're being a bitch. I would have been like, you're being a little bitch about this. This is ridiculous. Like, I do what I want. I'm a grown adult. I can do what I want. I'm, I'm gonna go do it, but thanks for nothing. Like, I probably would have been a bitch about it. But, looking back now, I actually do have one or two people in my life that did step away from me when I was bartending and like heavily involved in like the night scene in New York City. I did have two friends that were like, I'm very worried about you. And I think about them. I've never actually like reached out to them and told them I should, but like that had reached out with concern and love and kindness, and I pushed them away. And the divine will do that, but Lucifer will do that. Like firm. And this ruffles feathers when I see people start working with him for sure. For sure. Because they think he's going to leave. They think because he's potentially saying no to something or being a bit harder on something that he's going to abandon. And I'm like, no, 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 this is quite the opposite. This is the opposite of abandonment. This is him holding the container for you and he's not going anywhere. And if you decide to tell him to fuck off in that moment, he will stand right there. He'll fuck off, but he's not abandoning you. He's just respecting what you're saying and taking a step back. But the moment you're like, "Okay, I'm sorry, I take it back," he's right there. He doesn't abandon anything. That's what's so incredible about his energy is he follows through and he will follow through even if it's a chuckle. I'm warning you, even if it's a good joke for him, he will follow through. He's got a running joke right now with me that's going on 3 years, and I'm waiting for the end of it. I'm waiting for it. And he keeps saying it's going to be good. And then he says, when pigs fly. So every time someone makes a joke about a pig flying, I literally shudder because one of the jokes that he had ended with me getting shit on by a seagull. So I'm always scared of his jokes at this point. So I'm like, if a pig lands on me, Lucifer, I swear to God, if a pig flies over a fence and I have to catch it, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So, speaking of starting, okay, I want to talk about two different perspectives. There's going to be the perspective that you feel he's already around, and then there's going to be the perspective of I've never felt him around, but I'm really interested in starting. Okay? So we're already talking about you feel that he's already around. That's kind of where we started. That's kind of where we're in the thick of it right now. So say, yeah, you're at a point and you're like, I've been interested in things that are associated with him. And there's so much. Oh my God. It's kind of everywhere, guys. Just so you know, like culturally, it's kind of pressed upon you, especially if you're an underdog in any sort of way. I'm not trying to discredit Lucifer's work at like poking at you because he is quite good at that. But I also want to say that it is kind of like shoved down your throat because Christianity is such a dominant part of our culture, especially in Western society, that you have to consider that the adversary, the like ultimate underdog, is going to be pressed upon you anytime there's opposition to the right way to do something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, completely.
Yeah. So I think it can get a little tricky when people are like, how do I know it's him then? And not just me being influenced by the world and feeling like an underdog. And I get that question a lot. And I think it's a great question. I really
Both
do.
things could be true at the same time.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. All things can be true at the same time, and especially in that situation. So that means you need to take the first step. So what are those first steps? They seem really, really simple. Really simple. So simple that I think a lot of us who've been practicing for so long don't ever think about the beginning. And so if you've been a practitioner for so long and you're over here with your arms crossed going, isn't important to me. I already work with Lucifer. I hope that you find some importance in this because I actually think that going back to the basics is such a good reminder, such a little breath of fresh air. Um, so how do we start? Well, step one, say you're going to. Intention, say you're going to. Get yourself a little journal or use a journal app in your phone if you have an iPhone and date it and say, I'm going to start reaching towards Lucifer's energy. It's really that simple. There are also a couple other things you need to consider here. How do you want to work with Lucifer? Do you want to do this in a way that is traditional? If you do, then I highly suggest looking into Solomonic practices, going the more traditional route of demonology, going the more traditional route of uh, magic, but perhaps like kind of leaning more into the left-hand path and the traditional way of the occult. And you can do so by getting your hands on some books. Get your hands on a couple of the infernal dictionaries. Get your hands on some, S. Connolly and some Michael Ford, who's a racist, but whatever. Get some, get your hands on some books, um, and start there. If traditional, if traditional demonology is what your heart is pushing you towards. Um, but also, if you want my opinion, because you're here, I would assume you do. If if I could go back in time, I can't. But if I could, I I wouldn't start there. I wouldn't. That's where I started. And I have no regrets, but my practice blossomed in a really beautiful way when I let the books go. But in truth, I didn't also have the internet down my throat telling me like this is right and this is wrong. And I'm a gatekeeper of information, blah blah blah. I didn't have any of that. So I didn't know what was
Um,
right or wrong at all. So actually what I had was um a bunch of books that just I was studying, and I was studying through a more like academic perspective, like no intent of working with any of these entities. Just like trying to understand. And then I started to hear things in my head more. Like I was like suddenly talking to myself more aggressively, but like in like third person, like I can't explain it. Like you should do this or you this or are we really gonna do that? Like, like things like that where I was like, I do not talk to myself this way. And it was very clear to me that I had been engaging simply by making the intentional choice to start engaging, which was counter which was honestly it was a tell for me because I was like, according to this book, this shouldn't be happening, right? According to this book, there's a lot of rituals that need to happen in order for you and I to be able to have this discussion. And yet, I'm having this discussion. And I didn't have anyone to say, "Well, you're doing it wrong." So I'm very grateful for not having that pressure. I also didn't have anyone on the internet saying, "You're in psychosis." And honestly, I was living the way I was living. I don't know how the real world wasn't in my face. I was exhausted all the time and working my ass off. So, like, I was faced with the real world constantly. I was not in any level of psychosis. I was just trying to survive. And there would be these really incredible moments of levity, like joy and understanding that came out of nowhere. And it was typically associated with being present. I had noticed that anytime I was hyper present of my surroundings, something opened up. Like something became clear. Someone said something to me. There was an animal, there was a sign, it was on somebody's shirt, and I noticed that was the difference. And so, step 1, intent and presence. Sounds so 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 simple. It's hard. It is not simple. It's hard. You know? It's hard because we're not typically present in a world that is asking us to go, 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 go. So that pause of, wait, where am I? What am I doing? What is happening around me? Who is even around me? How am I feeling? What is happening in this instant? And just taking it in for 60 seconds, I had realized was like setting me apart from the moving world around me. And it made it so I could hear myself. I don't mean them. I didn't say them. I didn't say Lucifer. I said myself, me. That's key. to all of this because you're going to ask a major question is how can I tell the difference between my voice and his voice? And here's the answer. You can't until you know what your voice sounds like. And so having those moments of presence teaches you something. It teaches you what you sound like. Now I don't have any moments of presence or any moments of alone. It's constantly me and him in my head, which is fine. But I can tell the difference, all these years later, I can tell the difference between his voice and my voice. But this is how you start. You start with intention. I am intentionally going to do this. And whether it is, because in my personal opinion, you reaching for the books is an act towards him. Whether you're doing the rituals or not, it's an act towards him. You could choose to not reach for those books and you could reach for philosophy instead. Maybe read a book on Taoism, read a book on Stoicism, read a book on whatever philosophy that floats your boat and say, I'm doing this with the intent of leaning into your energy, reaching for your energy. Now, again, this is my UPG that this is how it works. This is not how many occultists think this works. I'm going to be real with you. It's not. A lot of occultists are going to tell you, no, you need all of these other things. She is lying to you. She is this, she is that. Sure, fine, whatever. Try it. Try it. If it doesn't fucking work for you, then try something else. This is just a way. This is the way that worked for me. And I'm assuming that's why you're here. So try it. Um, and then another way was animals for me. Animals were huge. And not just like I lived in New York City, so like not just like I wasn't going around seeing like beautiful animals every corner, you know? That's I was going around seeing the man, peeing on the corner. That which is kind of animalistic, but like whatever floats boat. If I had a penis, I would do it too. So, you know, in truth, that was hard, but I would see it on the side of billboards, like the side of buses or billboards or buildings or people's shirts. And I'm not kidding. This is not me embellishing on anything. This is the truth. Um, I was in a store. I don't fucking remember what store it was. Some weird store. There's something in my eye in New York City. Um, it was kind of like, oh, why can't I think of the name of it? I love this store. It's not weird, but it's just I can't think of the name of it. I'll have to think of it. But it kind of has everything in it. It's got like a hodgepodge of things, and it's great because you can kind of like make a one stop, grab a bunch of things, and then head home. And I saw on the back of someone's shirt a swan, okay? And the swan was facing in one direction. And then this woman turned around and she was talking to her kid. And when she turned around on the front of her shirt, on the pocket, like the pocket and like the front of shirts have like front pockets and they have like little sewn animals into it. It was All Saints, the brand All Saints, which is a goat. Their emblem is a
Yeah.
sewn in goat. So when she turned around and she was leaning over and talking to her son, I saw the goat and I saw the goat and the swan like right next to each other. The swan was like facing the goat. And I kind of like in my head was like, huh. And again, I was really hyper present, really in my reality, like in my surroundings. And I was like, interesting. The swan, the goat, okay, very much obviously Lucifer energy. There's a lot of energy happening right now. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Cool, whatever. And then I checked out and I looked at my receipt and on my receipt, I don't remember if it was the cost of something or if it was like the tax or whatever it was, but it was like 666. And I was like, "Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Got it. Got it." Like it's very clear at this point. Those synchronicities really helped kind of push me along where I was like, you are around me. Hmm. And then I would hear little things like, yeah. In my head, like, yeah. Kind of like obviously. Um, but I obviously at that point didn't really trust them because I hadn't spoken to an entity like that since I was a child. So him kind of coming back into my life so strongly was very strange, you know? But yeah, not the point. The point is I hope what you're getting from this is that you do need to be present if you are going to approach it through this way, through this type of approach. And I suggest this approach with any entity. It is not just demons. Any pantheon, this is the same approach that I would take. And I am not telling you either to go run around looking for signs and synchronicities and then that's it. No, this is about genuinely being very intentional with your energy, very present with your mind and your body, very grounded in the world around you, not critical, not hyper analytical, observant and curious. Those are the two words that I'm really going to use. And then also document it. Go home, document it. I saw this, I saw this. Because when you're documenting it, you'll start to see what was kind of a one off and what was a little bit more of a pattern. And this is not something you need to do for your whole practice, but just something that I think is fun to do at the beginning. The beginning of your practice should be fun. It should look like the fool. It should look like you stepping off the cliff, kind of just excited for the next thing. If you start adding unnecessary pressure, I really ask you to look at who is pushing that pressure on you. Is it TikTok? Is it society? Is it the world? Is it you? Is it perfectionism? Is it trauma? Like what is doing it, you know? Um, and then the next thing is going to be research that I'm going to suggest. Not to figure out who he is, because good luck, but to start to hear stories about him. And it could be through all the perspectives. I love hearing stories about Lucifer. I love hearing different perspectives on Lucifer. I love it when people are like, I think he's this and this and this and this. And I think he's connected to this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, live, queen. Whatever you think. Because it shows me all his facets, all the ways that he's come in for that person, all the ways that all the things, the colors, the scopes that he's taken to heal that heart, to be with that person, to be with that heart, to help them move forward in their life, to make their life just a little bit more joyful is really cool. So do yourself a favor and don't be so critical of other people's stories about him. Even if it goes completely against what you're experiencing. It might. It might. Do you know how many people tell me about Lucifer and it goes against almost everything that I think I know of him? All the time. All the time. The amount of people that like show me pictures of how they see him and then tell me what he says and does and how he talks to them and the things that he does, it sounds nothing like the Lucifer that I know. And then something really kind of cool happened once. Because that bothered me for a little while. I would go to him and I would be like, who are you? I would be like, what are you doing? I don't understand. You are so different with me. And he would just chuckle about it. And then one day he said, I want to show you something. And I said, okay. And he said, you'll know when it happens. You'll hear it. You'll know. And I said, okay. And he said, just listen for the white rose. I said, okay. So I had a client and they were going on and on about their relationship with Lucifer, what he's like, what he does. And again, completely different than me. So different. He looked different, acted different, sounded different, walked different, talked different, just different, 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 different. And then she said, but something that is sure is that I always go to this garden. And she said, yeah, there's this patch of white roses. Um, and it's just really beautiful. And it makes me think that if he's so caring over these delicate roses, that, he would be so caring over our sort of delicate human experience. And I really loved that. And I knew it was him being like, I'm infinite, baby. I'm a fucking god. I will do what I want, be what I want, be who I want, and how I need to be to commune with this person, to work with this person, to help this person. And then I had someone say to me, because I shared this story before, and they were like, well, then doesn't that just make him disingenuine? And I'm like, you're a human. If you decide to evolve next year, and I don't see you all year, but all year you've been through fucking hell and back, Christian hell and back. You've been killing yourself, making shit happen. People have been breaking your heart left and right, and then you've been setting boundaries and you've been like, fuck this. And you chop all your hair off and you dye it pink and you reclaim yourself and your sovereignty and you're a boss. And I'm used to you being kind of a doormat. And then I see you. Do you want me to say, you used to be a doormat and I don't really like you now? Or do you want me to say, like, you have fucking evolved, baby. You have changed. You have grown. I don't even know who you are, but I am committed to get to know who this new version of you is because, damn, queen, that's what you want. We have our own versions of evolution as humans. It's not as cool and extreme as the divine, but we have our own versions of this. We change all the time. We're so used to being around humans that are uncomfortable with change that they make us feel bad for changing. But humans who are healed and not acting from wounds typically won't feel bad or won't make you feel bad for changing. They will support your change and your glow up and they'll want to be a part of it and want to like cheer you on because they'll realize that you succeeding does not make them succeed less. Like that's the truth about having healed people in your life. And the divine is similar in that they are so vast, so different, so incredibly multifaceted that we are not really necessarily always experiencing the same facets of that entity. And the way that we learn more about that entity and their facets is by communicating to each other, sharing our experiences without judgment, criticism, without those things, but with being able to hold space for it and go, that is so cool. Because in truth, he cares about those white roses. He cares about every single one of us, every single person that he interacts with so much. So, where do you start? There. It's simple, but intention, presence, and observation and curiosity.
And I would share the caveat that they're willing to not stay in a box to be able to relate to you directly as an individual and a human being, being the essence of the divine choosing you
Mm.
as the part of that, as opposed to just being, oh, I'm Lucifer, the hell and fire and brimstone, like me or don't. But taking the time to know you and integrate with you in ways that you'll understand their presence being a truly divine act and that is individual to you.
Exactly. Well, also, if you are someone who sees him as literally a fallen angel who defied an authoritative God and now runs an infernal realm of demons, then you're gonna get that version of him. I know. I've met that version. I've seen many versions of him. I've worked with many of them, many facets, many. And then if you end up where I'm at, which I won't even say of how I see him, you're gonna get a very different version. So who's to say what's right and what's wrong? There is no right or wrong. It's adjusting to what you're comfortable with. Because say you're working with that version and then you go to him and you're like, "Wait a minute. I don't actually wait." You're like, "Hold on a minute. Christianity isn't right." And he's like, "Yeah." And you're like, "So that means that there is no one God." He's like, "Yeah, duh." Okay. And then he wouldn't say yeah, duh, but he would be like, "Yeah." And then he'd be like, "So that means that there are multiple gods." And he's like, "Mm-hmm." And he's like, you're like, "So that means that there's no heaven or hell." And he's like, "Uh-huh." "So that means that there's no infernal realm, but there is a realm because I'm here. So you exist somewhere." And he's like, "Right." You're like, "But that means that angels and demons aren't enemies and that there was no war, there's no fall. Do you even have wings? Like, what am I seeing?" And knowing Lucifer, he'd be like, well, we should look at that, you know? And
We should look at it.
he'll want to deconstruct that with you. And the thing is, he will right there, right then, he'll deconstruct everything. And then you'll think, "Oh, I figured it out." And then he'll come to something new. And then he'll be like, "Oh, did you want to look at that too?" And then you have to deconstruct that. And then you'll want to look at that, and then he'll deconstruct that. And then before you know it, you'll have that, I don't know, crisis where you're like, "Who are you?" Which I've had many times over the years. Um, but here's the thing, you also may never get there. That's okay too. You may decide, "I actually like this version of him, and this is who I think he is. This is who he says he is. This is what I feel comfortable in. This is where I'm gonna stop." Guess what? That's okay too. You still have something really beautiful to share, something really beautiful to learn. He's still incredible to work with like that. The key of what I'm saying here is there's really no right or wrong. This is a very fluid thing that we're doing. There's a lot of people that are going to tell you that there's a right or wrong, and I would like to ask you who makes them the authority. I'm not an authority sitting here in front of you. Who the fuck makes them an authority? And they sure as hell do not have authority in your life if you are a sovereign and you are working with entities that literally teach sovereignty. So perhaps embodying that a little bit would be very helpful from the beginning instead of something they have to learn later. So, I will say my first deck for him had a bunch of animals on it, and that was also really helpful for me because I found that as I was documenting what cards he had pulled for me, like what cards I had pulled with him, I had noticed that I would see those animals out in the world too. Like orcas, I associate orcas with him, and nobody else does. I don't know anyone that's ever said to me like, "You know who, you know what I associate with Lucifer? Free fucking Willy." But I do, and that's fine. That's for me. Okay, so what? It doesn't invalidate me. Just means that that's just something that I associated with him early on. And I still do. It's okay to have your own special things with him, your own unique signs and associations. It's okay. It's okay. I hope that this was helpful. We're gonna keep going. We're still at the very, very beginning. So the four things that you really need to pay attention to, is just like mindfulness, presence, curiosity, and observation. This is where we're starting. And those things really kind of cover a lot, strangely. You won't think that you're doing something, you are. You're building an understanding of your own voice. You're building an understanding of your own nervous system and how difficult it is to get it to calm down in really, really busy environments. And you're starting to see them in the world. You're basically learning active meditation early on because meditation is the act of mindfulness and mindfulness is the act of meditation. So we're getting started with how to work with Lucifer. We're just at the beginning. There's going to be some other episodes. So strap in. Um, And I would like to just say that you can apply this to any other deity. You can apply this to any other entity, but I'm just being hyper specific because it's Lucifer. And any chance I get to talk about Lucifer and how incredible he is, I will take it. So here we are. Do you have anything you want to say, Ryan, before we head out?
No, no. I mean, funny enough, you did remind me of the first Oracle deck that you ever gave me, which was an animal deck when you said that, funny enough.
I use a lot of animal decks for Lucifer. A lot. Although, ironically, oh wait, actually, let's see. For our viewers here, I'm like one of the decks I have of him that I use is Shibari, because he also kinky. But oh my God, you've got to be kidding me! I split the deck and it was the Emperor. This deck that I have for him does have a lot of animals too, but they're like, of course, I'm only playing. Oh, there's a mermaid, but this is mostly horses because I also associate him with a lot of horses. Um, but I think this is called the Scorpio Sea Tarot deck or something like that. But yeah, there's a couple decks that I know he really likes that involve a lot of animals. I know the Anima Monday deck he likes. Um, but yeah.
It's a great deck.
Anyways, it's a good deck. Um, this has been a lovely episode. Thank you so much for doing Lunchtime with Demons with me, Ryan. I love you, and thanks for being my friend. And
I love you too, Bella. Thank you for being my friend, and I love that we get to do this together.
me
And
too.
I agree. I hope that if we impart anything, is just to find your own practice.
Yeah, but find something that can bring you a little bit of joy and peace in this world.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, and something that my student said yesterday, I really, really try to remember, and I love that she brought it up, but she said, if anyone else, if a Christian or anyone else of, a more dominant, prominent religion spoke about their God the way we speak about our gods, nobody would bat an eye. They walk around, just praise the Lord. Nobody says anything, but if I walk around saying praise Lucifer, very different. But even within our own community, sometimes the way we speak about them can be really, really criticized because of people's projections, their possessiveness over certain entities, and their defensiveness over certain entities, and jealousy. And I'd really, really, really like to, that's why I'm talking about it openly, because I'd really like to challenge people to put an end to it if they can, or at least start to try to be a little bit more compassionate and kind towards other people in their practice, even if it is with the same entity that you love. Because I love Lucifer with every fiber of my fucking being, every single fiber. I, he is literally the air that I breathe. And in truth, I am surrounded by people who work with him in different ways that completely are antithetical to how I work with him. And if I can do it, if I can not only hold space, but truly learn to love and see your practice as not just valid, but something beautiful, you can do it. Anyone can do it. It's a choice. You have to choose to see other people and their experience as valid. And you don't have to at all. You can start small by just saying, I'm not going to be mean to this person. That's a great place to start. That's a helpful, healed place to start. But I suggest starting. I do. You'll learn more about them. You'll learn to love like them. And in a world that can be quite hateful, it's really, 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 really important. Anyways, well, have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll see you next week for another How to Work with Lucifer part two. And we're going to go into the details of potentially building an altar and things that he likes and dislikes. We're going to talk about offerings. We're going to talk about actual synchronicities and signs, asking for them, involving divination. We're going to talk about those things that get a little bit more intense. Um, but I did want to start really gently with just the absolute basics, which is being mindful, being present, and being curious and allowing yourself to have a lot of observation of his energy throughout the world and making those connections first. Cool beans. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.